You know, for years, digital advertising has been built on this one massive promise, a promise that has convinced marketers all over the world to spend billions, maybe even trillions of dollars. Today, we're diving into the work of ad fraud researcher Dr. Augustine Fu, who asks a pretty gutsy question. What if that entire promise is a lie? We've all heard this a million times, right? It's like the holy grail of marketing, the dream that with just enough data and the right tech, you can zap the perfect ad to the perfect person at the exact moment they're about to buy. It's a really powerful and, let's be honest, very seductive idea. Well, here's the thing. According to Dr. Fau's massive body of research, the reality of digital advertising, it's a completely different story. So let's break down 3 of the biggest myths that keep all that money flowing. All right, first up, the biggest myth of them all, precision targeting. You know the sales pitch. Ad tech companies claim they can help you target your ads with surgical precision, right down to a single person. But how accurate is that really? Okay, this is where it all starts to fall apart. Just look at this. For the most basic, simple targeting you can do, gender, the accuracy is only 42%. That means you'd have a better shot at reaching the right gender just by flipping a coin. It is literally worse than random guessing. And it gets so much worse when you start adding more layers like age or income. So why is it so bad? Well, it all comes down to where the ads are running. See, inside what we call walled gardens, think Google or Meta, you're logged in. They know who you are. But most of the automated programmatic ads, they run on the open web. That's the millions of other websites out there where you're just an anonymous little cookie. And on the open web, ad tech has to guess who you are. And how does this guessing game work? It's pretty crude, actually. They just look at a cookie's browsing history. So if a cookie visits a bunch of sports sites, they might tag it as male. But it's a total shot in the dark. I mean, like Dr. Fau asks, what on earth can you possibly guess about a cookie that just visits walmart.com? And if that wasn't bad enough, you've got this problem called cookie matching. This is when you, the advertiser, upload your own list of customers, and you try to find them out on the open web. Well, studies show that process works less than 45% of the time. So much for precision, right? Okay, so you might be thinking, if the targeting is so terrible, why do people keep pouring money into it? And that brings us to myth number 2. It's the argument you always hear. The reports look great, so it must be working. But is that performance even real? This is the classic response, right? Hey, our audience-targeted campaigns have amazing click-through rates. They're way higher than our other campaigns. And yeah, on the surface, that makes perfect sense. But what if those clicks aren't coming from who you think they are? Or what if they're not coming from humans at all? This is where it gets really sneaky. There's a fraud technique called bid licking. Basically, bots send out millions of fake ad requests just to see which user IDs get the highest bids from advertisers. Once they find a valuable target, like say a cookie that's been tagged as a doctor, they just copy that ID. Then they have their army of dots pretend to be that doctor all over the internet, gobbling up those expensive ads and clicking on them. And this is what happens. This chart comes directly from Dr. Fau's analysis of a real campaign. That tiny little blue sliver, that's the humans, just 3%. The rest, all bots. So yeah, you got a ton of clicks. They just weren't from anyone who could ever buy your product. Now, you'd think paying more for a really premium audience, like doctors, would get you better results, right? Nope. It actually gets worse. Here's a campaign that was specifically targeting healthcare professionals. The human slice of the clicks, 1%. See, the more you're willing to pay for an audience, the more a fraudster wants to impersonate them. And one more, just to show you this isn't a fluke. This was a campaign targeting intenders, people who are supposedly ready to buy. And again, look at that. Just a tiny fraction of human clicks. The high performance you see in your reports, it's an illusion. It's a magic trick performed by bots. So let's recap. The targeting is wildly inaccurate. The performance metrics are an illusion created by bots. This all leads us to the biggest, most important question of all. Does any of this actually drive real business growth? This is myth number 3. Dr. Fau has this brilliant analogy for a lot of digital targeting, especially for retargeting, showing ads to people who have already been to your website. He calls it steering into the train wreck. You are intentionally spending money to advertise to people who already know who you are and were probably going to buy from you anyway. That's not growth. That's just paying for sales you are already going to get. And look, we have proof from the real world. Some of the biggest brands on the planet ran huge experiments. P&G cut $200 million. Chase pulled their ads from 99% of the websites they were on. Uber slashed $120 million from their budget. eBay literally turned off paid search in a third of the entire US. I mean, these are gigantic cuts. So what happened to their sales? What was the catastrophic impact on their business? The answer, incredibly, was zero. Nothing. No change. Which strongly suggests that a massive chunk of that ad money wasn't driving any new business at all. Okay, so that all sounds pretty bleak, I know, but it's not all bad news. If the old way of doing things is broken, what's the path forward? This is where Dr. Faut introduces a totally new way to think about strategy, one that moves us away from all these myths and towards actual growth. He calls it greenfield advertising, and the idea is actually really simple, but it's powerful. Stop spending all your time and money chasing the tiny 1% of the market that already knows you. Instead, shift your focus to the massive green field, the 99% of potential customers who have never even heard of you. That is where real growth, sales that wouldn't have happened otherwise, comes from. And this visual just makes it so clear, doesn't it? You can keep trying to squeeze more blood from that 1% turnup of existing customers, or you can start planting seeds in that vast, untapped 99% green field. When you look at it this way, the choice for real growth is kind of a no-brainer. So how did we get so obsessed with the turnip anyway? Well, it comes from this old marketing saying that got twisted over time. It's cheaper to sell to an existing customer. Now, that might be true in some cases, but in the world of digital ads, it led marketers down a rabbit hole of overspending on retargeting while totally neglecting the much, much bigger opportunity of finding new customers. The answer is to find some balance. Dr. Fu calls it pitching and catching. It's a simple two-step process. First, you pitch. You use big, broad channels to build awareness, to tell that 99% that you even exist. Then you catch. You use your digital ads to harvest all the demand that you just created. You have to have both. The industry just got obsessed with only catching. So, what's the takeaway for you? The most important thing to realize is that there's no magic button here. The way forward isn't about buying some new piece of tech. It's about changing your mindset. It takes curiosity to question what you're being told, and it takes courage to run your own experiments. Turn some stuff off. See what really happens to your sales. At the end of the day, the data tells a pretty clear story of enormous waste and deeply flawed ideas. But it also points to a much smarter way to grow. And the only way to find it is to look at your own data, to question your own reports, and, as Dr. Faut would say, see faux yourself. And by the way, that's faux, pronounced foo.